Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Change with Colton. Today, I'm excited to have Swanand Rao on the podcast. He's an author, mentor, angel investor, has two patents, and an impressive background leading product teams at top companies. He's an expert in bootstrapping new products and developing customer centric solutions. Currently, he's the co founder of M9, where he's focused on building the next generation of on device AI agents to boost individual productivity. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Colton. It's great to be on the show.
To start out, can you take us through your career journey leading up to today and what ultimately led you to jump into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, so I am an engineer by trade. Went to school, got a degree in engineering, in software engineering, and started my career as an software engineer. Did some early research with Avaya Labs while I was at graduate school, and then worked in the finance industry, and then transitioned over to storage, which was very interesting. And then eventually along the way, I also happened to get interested in the business aspect of things. Like, there are always two aisles. One is the business aisle, and then there's the engineering aisle. So I was very
Hmm.
curious what's on the other side, right? So I got my executive MBA from University of Michigan. That was amazing time. Then later on, I took up the role as into the product management aspect of software development. I've been with like Fortune 100 companies or Fortune 50 companies and even small startups. Obviously, entrepreneurship comes with a degree of frustration with how things are, and that's exactly what happened to me as well. I could see that there is this huge opportunity in the realm of what AI can do, but obviously, we're still sort of in the early stages of where this whole thing is leading us to. And there are several opportunities, right, that can be solved and have meaningful impact. So impact is what honestly was the primary driver for me to kind of get into entrepreneurship.
Very exciting stuff. To dive a little deeper before we jump into what you're currently working on, can you share some experiences from leading product teams and some lessons you've learned there?
Yeah, sure. Product management is a very interesting, I would say, trait that has to be developed, and it has like two sides, right? One is sort of the non-scientific, fuzzy, creative side, and
Hmm.
obviously there is the more scientific side of things where you are more data driven, more sort of like look at the numbers, look at the technologies, right, and evaluate them. So, in my opinion, product management is to be like that perfect product manager, you have to have both these traits. Now, obviously, I started with the technical traits, what I kind of began my career with. That doesn't mean that like individuals who are non-technical cannot be good product managers. Right. What I'm trying to say is like as you kind of evolve in that role of a product manager, you have to kind of optimize both these areas, and
Hmm.
that's where you'll have the maximum impact of creating not just impactful products but long lasting products as well, right?
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It seems like you need different skill sets to be a product manager. And from that experience, it leads you into entrepreneurship. I feel like a lot of product managers eventually become entrepreneurs.
For sure. I would say impact is at the core of this transition, right? As a product manager, you strive for impact. When you obviously see gaps in the market or gaps in what the customers want, that's sort of the value add, right, that you bring in. And this value add translates to the impact that you have in the society. So that I think is one of the biggest
Right.
drivers to kind of transition into entrepreneurship.
Definitely. And you also wrote a book on this, The
Yeah.
Invisible Product Manager. Is there
Yeah.
any other takeaways that you want to share from that?
Yeah, I mean, the motivation for writing The Invisible Product Manager was in the realm of product management. Product managers are gravitated towards what is shiny, right? Like, which means they are more focused and for really good reasons on the user experiences and user interfaces. But all of this is backed by this invisible uh, energy, which is the platform, right? Which are the services and the algorithms that run to support these user experiences. That domain itself is pretty vast, and that has been my core competency. In fact, the notion of building M9 sort of comes from that experiences that I've had as a platform product manager. So the book resonates to the learnings that I've had. And I just want to kind of bubble up the importance of product managers who essentially look into platforms, who essentially build those efficient or push teams to kind of build those efficient algorithms. Kind of wanted to bubble that up and outline the challenges and how you can overcome that. Honestly, it is becoming important in the phase of AI that we are in, because AI at this stage, yes, there are model trainings, model inferences, but slowly we are moving towards like platformy kind of a realm where having a very efficient, easy to use and durable platforms have become very important.
Very insightful stuff. So yeah, transitioning a little bit, this leads the conversation that way. Can you share more about what you're working on?
Yeah, so our vision at M9 was to essentially bring AI closer to users, right? Until very recently, until this new development with DeepSeek unraveled, building an AI system, training LLMs was like supposed to be a very cost intensive and scale intensive operation, which I believe it's still going to continue to be so. But at the same time, there is a long tail of these intelligent machines, or LLMs or SLMs that are widely known, that can very well be repurposed, and they're all a commodity. They can very well be repurposed, and that whole notion of intelligence can be brought very close to the users, right? You can call it as AI at edge, but what we are more focused on is unlocking those professional workflows right on your devices, right on your laptops or your like desktops or even on-prem, right? One of the very interesting aspects of it is if you think about professional workflows as they are today, right? Most of them, when it comes to applying intelligence, are very personalized, which means the act of querying an intelligent machine and getting a response can be very sandbox and self-contained, right? For example, we have built a coding copilot on our inference at source platform, and that coding copilot is geared towards honestly creating an alter ego of that software developer that kind of just works side alongside you as an engineer, and kind of unravels and boosts productivity when it comes to software development.
There's so many use cases for this platform with the M9 that you're building. Can you share a few more examples of good
Yes.
use cases?
Yes, definitely. It's very interesting, right? Like as an entrepreneur or as a founder, right? Like you have certain vision and certain notion of like what impact, what is your sort of North Star impact that you're going to kind of create. And we definitely wanted to bring AI closer to the devices. But as we started like speaking with customers and understanding that pain points even in more detail, right? I was actually blown away with the kind of workflows that customers are requesting. So one such amazingly impactful workflow that I can share with you is in drug discovery, right? So we got approached by this company who is leveraging AI to enable or expedite drug discovery process, right? Where it
Hmm.
involves essentially running inferences over millions and millions of molecules and compounds to kind of come up with that final formulation of the drug, right? The challenge they had was they're saying that, look, we want this to be private, and at the same time we have very high cogs, right, or cost of goods, right, or like capex that we have to kind of deal with. So when we evaluated like what M9 can do, it solved for both these problems. Now this is something that I was blown away with, because I could now see the real impact that M9 can have. We always imagine it to be like professional workflows, but enabling and accelerating drug discovery, it's just amazing. There are many other workflows that we are kind of
Developing.
negotiating and
Yeah.
discussing, but this is something which I feel is just amazing.
Yeah, I definitely see that. You're impacting the future of drug discovery, like that impacts like the world. So it's
Impact.
very inspiring, honestly. So talking more about AI, a view you shared with me is that we're shifting from AI as a premium tool
Yeah.
to democratize workflow. What do you think this shift will mean for startups and aspiring entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I've always been of the thought, there are always two schools of thought, two or three schools of thought, right? When there is a new technology or a wave comes in, right? And like the one school of thought that I'm more aligned with is that I see this whole AI revolution. Like there are different analogies that different people have come up with. Some say AI is like the time when transistors were discovered. Some of them say that it was like the nuclear power that was discovered. In my mind, AI is sort of the new internet, right? So internet started with like very specific use cases for very specific impacts and purposes, but then it quickly grew into this worldwide phenomenon, which is now common table stakes for everybody. It is accessible to everybody, right? So I compare AI to the new internet, right? Where in the beginning there will be like these premium kind of applications that will be kind of geared towards, but with the pace with which things are evolving, right, and with sort of like the reduction of costs when it comes to generating newer models, for example, or leveraging like smaller models to achieve more, that kind of is going to completely democratize the way AI will be accepted and distributed, right,
Hmm.
going forward. So I definitely feel that AI, the foundations of AI would be democratized and commoditized enough that entrepreneurs can then leverage these easily accessible and affordable foundations to build workflows that truly unlock value. I think that value unlock, I think we are in the midst of it. I have not seen a very clear cut value that can be unlocked. And when I mean by value is, it's not something that you're solving for or filling a gap. It's actually filling a gap better than the alternatives. And AI's alternative, in a very broad sense of term, are humans. So we have to kind of
Work
look
together.
out for those value unlocks, right? And I can clearly see them on the horizon.
How do you see this being involved with the future of education? Like with the
Oh,
new
it's
technologies, they have to integrate their learnings from this new technology into the
it,
future
it's going to
generations.
be huge, right? And it's going to be huge and at a fundamental level. I can give you like a very personal example. So I grew up in India. Now, if you think of India, right, it is like a combination of like 19 or 20 different mainstream languages, and students or children over there, they do get educated in like sort of their local languages or the mother tongue that they speak, right, which need
Hmm.
not be English. As kids grow older, and this is something which I have experienced, which I've seen my friends experience, it becomes hard to grasp different languages. Like, because at a certain level, a stage, all of the education kind of moves towards English, right,
Right.
and English literature. Imagine if AI can provide that translation layer where they can still continue learning in the language which they have used all along, right? And language is that fundamental medium of information that you latch onto early on, right? So it's very difficult to switch, right, between
Right.
these mediums, right? So imagine like and LLMs are nothing but like at the minimum power that an LLM can give is text to text, right? And
Right.
that was the original, even in the Transformers, sort of the genesis of Transformers, because they wanted to write like a really nice translation mechanism to go from English to French, right? So think about at a very fundamental level, you have these regional schools that have education in the local languages, and as the children grow, they go to vocational branches, they go to scientific branches, and if they can continue learning in that local language, the amount of information that they can grasp and articulate thoughts would be, there's going to be a big difference, right? So I think that's one of the applications, a very fundamental applications where AI can tremendously improve societies, right, and create impact, right? Obviously, we have seen productivity gains across the board, right? AI is such a horizontal kind of a technology that it kind of penetrates everything, right?
Right.
But especially in edtech, yes, it's going to be it's going to, like, these are some of the things that come to my mind, right? I'm sure there are like entrepreneurs out over there who are like
So
thinking of like voice to text or so many other mediums and so many other kind of problems, right, that you can solve. It's 100% edtech is going to be revolution.
with that access to all of these technologies, the barrier to entry is pretty low. So, how do you think startups or entrepreneurs or even yourself can stand out from the competition?
Yeah, I'll give you like a fun example, and it's like it's our way of life at M9, right? So at M9, the genesis was like we built this infrastructure at Source platform, which is like a highly performant and resource efficient inference engine, right? And the first app that we went behind was a coding copilot, right? There were like two kind of thought processes. One was obviously there was a business driver where we wanted to kind of bubble up a real application of this platform. But second, we wanted to accelerate our own development, right? So we actually are using our own coding copilot to accelerate our own kind of development. There you go. Right now, imagine in the traditional sense, if you are an entrepreneur and if you are starting this sort of non-AI world, right, you would have to think about, hey, I'll have to probably hire so many engineers, pay X amount of dollars to get my code running and develop. That bootstrapping can be done at a very cheap cost now, at a very economical. The beauty of all of this is it's available to all. It's not that like the Fortune hundreds or Fortune 500 only get access to it, right? So I think leveraging AI to build AI, I think is sort of going to be, I would say, a framework that entrepreneurs should definitely look at adopting.
For sure. And do you have any advice on keeping those costs low? Because I know, like, on running those softwares and integrating APIs with each call, the cost can run up quickly.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we started M9. This may come across as a selfish plug, but honestly, it's not. Those by having AI on or repurposing your existing hardware, to kind of. And now again, I just want to be clear, right? That like there are two sort of work streams. Right? One is the training work stream, and one is the inference work stream. Now, training work stream obviously has its own challenges when it comes to cost and having the right hardware, so on and so forth. But the inferences, which is the most amount of usage once an LLM is built, right? Like you'll spend X dollars training an engine or an LLM, but you will spend much more serving this LLM to unlock value. So focusing on, and the value unlock is always going to come from inferences. It's like training doesn't really give you the value unlock. So probably focusing on, can you solve a problem by looking at the inference side of things, right? Can you break down a problem, which is like a traditional way of thinking, right? Like, can you break down a problem and start from something which is impactful, yet which allows you to balance out costs? I'll give you an example. So I was talking to this startup the other day. It is in the user experience space. And obviously they are converting intent into designs, right? Think of it that way at a broad term, right? And my question was, wouldn't you be requiring, even if you use a third party LLM, OpenAI or Anthropic or any of those, your costs are going to be high. And as an entrepreneur, how are you thinking about it, right? Because you will scale and you will be in red from day zero. So the interesting part of that was that this entrepreneur broke down the whole notion of intent to design into two parts. One, which is more structured and more algorithmic, and that doesn't need those high inference costs. And then the other is where you actually have to apply AI, right? Now, by dividing the problem of intent to user experience into this fixed cost versus variable cost, and then the fixed costs are like extremely low, there you have, that's the optimization. And there you have a very fine looking business model, right? Which you can keep alive until you get those backings and those fundings where you can scale. And even if you scale, this is honestly a good model to kind of keep churning with, right? And rolling on.
Yeah, thanks for
So
sharing that. That's definitely valuable to the audience to know. Do you have any like other lessons that you learned from transitioning into entrepreneurship and building N9?
yeah, I mean, it's a tough job, right? It's a transition from having an army, a big set of individuals who can essentially delegate and offload aspects of getting everything together, to a 1 or 2 person team where all of that work, all of those faculties have to be driven by 1 or 2 people. That's sort of a huge kind of change in mindset. But once you have the drive to, and you have realized that there is an impact that you can have, that adjustment becomes that much more easy. One of the things that I cherish the most as an entrepreneur is the liberty to make choices, and the liberty to make choices fast. So there is this notion of fail fast. I actually am not that aligned with that notion. Actually, entrepreneurship gives you the opportunity to succeed fast,
Hmm.
right? And that comes from the fact that you are able to make those decisions, have those calls done in a very rapid way. And it's there is a goal and there is a path to the goal. right? And you are able to shape up that path very fast. Obviously, if the impact really takes off once you scale, there are all these other pathologies that come into picture. But hey, the journey is pretty amazing and rewarding.
For sure. Where do you see M9 going in the next few years?
I think like we are definitely envisioning that a lot of what is required to unlock intelligence is going to come closer and closer to the users. That's one aspect. The other aspect is like there will be a very different kind of personalization that's going to come into picture. So today, when you look at like anything from flashing ads or redirecting you to the right digital content, so on and so forth, it is personalized, but it is not to the degree that it really mimics your thought process and your intents. I think AI is going to change that, right? But with that hyper personalization, you obviously also there's sort of a derivative effect of privacy that
Right.
comes into picture, right? So how do you deal with that, right? Once you move from an autonomous system, like from an intelligent system to an autonomous system, which is where we are now getting in the realms of AI agents, that opens up that like, hey, now you just don't have one alter ego. You have many such kind of agents who will kind of string things together. So how do you make sure that the identities of the agents are managed? You don't want like someone spoofing to be like your ordering agent, food ordering agent, that like so those are like all of the challenges that are going to kind of come up. So hyper personalization is definitely on the horizon. Bringing miniaturization of tech stack is going to happen. We definitely believe in that. And we strongly believe that there is going to be a very strong play for algorithmic optimizations on top of the intelligence that is just becoming better and better. So algorithmic optimizations, algorithms are going to go nowhere. Like, I mean, they're not going anywhere, right? Like they're here to stay, and they're going to kind of going to drive the next set of
Innovate.
features and value that will be unlocked. So with all of this in mind, like we are definitely solving some of the hard problems in terms of making inferences better, in terms of its performance, in terms of the experiences that we give. I'll give you like one simple metric, right? So today at M9, we are at least 3x faster than comparable pipelines when it comes to inferences on devices, right? We feel that like what we have in our roadmap would make us at least 10x faster, and then at the same time maintaining a level of user experience that does not regress too much, and it kind of gives the same experience or even better to the user. So that's what we see. And clearly, with the kind of use cases that we are seeing, there is a horizontal kind of enablement that M9 as a platform can provide across industry verticals. And obviously, each of these verticals has their own set of challenges, right? That kind of we are trying to solve it in a horizontal way, but I'm sure at some point we will have to
Vertical.
kind of have optimizations that are more geared towards a specific high impact, high throughput workflow. So that's where we see.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for the non-technical audience, can you share how AI agents work or transformers and inferences in a non-technical way?
Yeah, I mean, like, I was actually thinking of how best, and obviously there are analogies which people have, but think of an AI agent as a decoration of capabilities around intelligence, right? Now, the best way to think about it is like your human body, right? So the intelligence is your brain, right? So that's where, like, you have all those neural connections that allow you to make certain decisions, right? But then obviously, like, you need your hands, your arms, your legs, your eyes. So these, think of them as the agents, right? And these agents, they kind of interact with this central nervous system to achieve certain specific tasks. Things like holding onto something or visualizing something, right? Or sensing something through your nose or your other sensory organ. So, and they kind of work in harmony and symphony to give you those worldly experiences that we are used to, right? So agents are going to truly make our day-to-day living more autonomous, right? Where they are going to interact with a sort of a virtual intelligence that we call as artificial intelligence. But then, those interactions and the decorations that we build around this intelligence is going to make these workflows truly autonomous, where it is like we have an intent in mind and that intent actually gets realized. I was listening to this interview by Eric Schmidt, and he asked a very simple question to a room full of CS grads, that like, what are agents, right? Um, and one of the answers which he also agreed to was, we have text to text today, where we give in text and then text comes out of from the other side of a large language model, right? Think of an agent as text to action, right? Where we give a text, but it results in an action that needs to
Mm.
be taken, right? And then it just is a matter of stitching these actions together to create autonomous workflows. So that's sort of a very basic notion of what an agent is. But yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I think the non-technical part of the audience will appreciate that and understand a little bit more about the AI agents and AI in general. Moving on to the last segment of the show, I call it Idea Factory. Do you have any actionable business ideas that aspiring founders could explore and develop?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, right, intelligence is going to be democratized, and it's happening rapidly, and compute is going to be commoditized. Those things are going to kind of move in parallel. What remains is the sort of tech stack that needs to be built on top of it and the applications that need to be enabled. Right. And there are a lot of greenfield areas. One thing that I like, a very simple way to kind of come up with ideation or ideas in this new realm of things is, think of any workflow that is automated today, right? Any workflow, right? It can be sending an email, for example, or like storing your photos or videos or whatever it can be. And then reimagine those workflows in a fuzzy world where like an action, which is very finite today, like if you have to upload, let's say your images to something like a Dropbox or a box, right? You know exactly that like there will be an image which will be uploaded. And the way you know that is you get a response which says that like, hey, your image is uploaded. Convert this workflow into a fuzzy workflow where someone will do that, like a virtual entity will do it on your behalf. But it's very difficult to interpret whether that action has really been achieved or it is probabilistically achieved, right? So that fuzziness, and there has been fuzziness in systems, but
Mhm.
this fuzziness is going to bubble up to humans, right? So think of any gaps that may arise or any pain points that may arise because of this fuzziness in the way you interact with a computer, right? Or with a computational device, right? I think that should unravel a lot of opportunities.
Thank you. And is there anyone that you admire in the startup community?
Yeah, I mean, no one particular person. I can tell you, not just the startup community, but in general, right? I believe that every person's career, and like I'm sort of I've crossed the halfway mark of usual tenure when it comes to one's career, right? The number of years, right? But there are at least two or three inflection points where it acts as a step function, right? That it takes you from a professional with certain skills to a professional which has better skills which didn't exist before, right? So there were at least two such instances. One right early on when I did my internship with Avaya Labs, which was a spin-off of Bell Labs, and a lot of the researchers were Bell Labs scientists. So they taught me two things, right? One, you can be really really smart and still be really really humble. And then the second thing, and that humility actually drives more innovation in my mind, right? Or like impactful innovation. And then the second thing is like just the way you think about computers and science and things around you, right? So they had a very different view of it. The second inflection point was my time with the folks at Sun, which at that time had become Oracle. I think they just made me a better software engineer, right? The way some of my mentors used to think, I could never think that when they kind of taught me that art of how to solve problems, right?
Mm.
How to formalize a problem and how to solve a problem. right? So I think that, and then like, the third inflection point was obviously when I did my MBA, right? Like when I got it. There are again two schools of thought, whether it is useful or not. In my honest opinion, it's your perspective that matters, right? When you're actually getting any formal education or something like that. But there, like, I got exposed to areas like marketing.
Mm.
And I always thought that like, the field that I am in, which is computer science, is the most difficult field, or science is the most difficult field. But trust me, marketing is so much more harder because it's so much more fuzzy, right? You have no clue why a certain marketing campaign becomes viral versus not. So, the ability to kind of navigate that fuzziness, right, and like understand the psychology of humans, that was amazingly powerful lesson. So I believe that, like, there are always these two or three inflection points. Obviously people tend to just skim over it because we are busy, but reflecting back, I can clearly see these three points in my career which have made me what I am today. Like, and obviously, listen to your parents, right? If you're blessed to have your parents, they are the best mentors you can have.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, it's important to take some time to reflect
Yeah,
and not just be busy all the time, because that's when you realize the lessons you've learned. And I agree, like with my time at Purdue for my master's, it helped me learn a lot more in a short amount of time, and that just applies to everyday life now.
yeah.
So do you have any last minute thoughts or advice to people?
I think my goal or my motto has been just focus on the impact. So if there is an impact, and that impact again is a matter of perspective, right? So impact can be making life more easier. Impact can be optimizing your financial gains. Impact can be just showcasing something which doesn't even exist, right? So whatever is your perspective of impact, just follow that lead. A really good friend of mine, when I did this whole thing of co-founding a company and stuff like that, he said that, look, like, startup is not a race, right? It's a journey, right?
Mm.
It's not even a marathon, it's a journey. Just enjoy the journey. That's the whole point of it. You will always have alternatives and options, but while you're at it, just enjoy the journey.
Really appreciate, and thanks for coming on. Where can people find you at, and how could the audience be useful to you?
Yeah, professionally, the only social media that I use is LinkedIn. So feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you guys. Happy to learn from you and happy to kind of help in any way.
Thanks again for joining Change with Colton, episode 15. Remember to be grateful and stay blessed.